We're live trading the Luigi coin. Let's see if we can get a good entry spot with some of these meme coins. See what the hype is about. Let's see what it can do. Thanks for everyone that's watching stream right now. I appreciate you. Welcome to the stream. I'm going to be live trading in about 10 minutes to see if we can get a good entry spot for the most popular coin of the day, Luigi. It's pretty cool. $33 million market cap. Please, if you're here, jump into the Discord, jump into the Telegram, so we're giving out signals so we can be early to these extremely crazy meme coins. Like this one is insane. I'm sure there'll be more meme coins in the next couple of days with this same guy, so be on the lookout for that. Join the chat, join the Discord, join the Telegram. Profit playbooks. Let's watch some videos to see what's going on. Is anyone in the chat in Luigi currently? If so, let me know. Please, if you're watching, join the Telegram group.
So you think you know wigs, but do you really? First up, we've got Shake video masks. You can use...
Plus, we are continuing to follow breaking news where police are questioning a person of interest in the murder of a United Healthcare CEO, Brian Thompson.
And good afternoon to you at 4 o'clock. I'm David Ushery.
I'm Natalie Pasquarello. We want to get right out to News 4's Mark Santia. He is live in Altoona, Pennsylvania. That's where a man is being interviewed by the NYPD right now. Mark.
Yeah, Natalie and David, Altoona is home to about 40,000 people. As you can imagine, this is causing quite a stir. You take a look behind me, media and residents here surrounding the police station. Moments ago, an NYPD caravan pulled up. Several NYPD detectives, including Deputy Commissioner Kaz Daughtry, arrived here at the Altoona police station. This is where the person of interest is being held, and this is where the investigation is entering another phase. A 5-day nationwide manhunt coming to an end 300 miles from New York City. Police in Altoona, Pennsylvania, arresting 26-year-old Luigi Mangione in connection with the murder of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson.
The suspect was in a McDonald's and was recognized by an employee who then called local police.
The McDonald's employee recognizing Mangione from one of these photos sent out by the NYPD after Wednesday morning's attack in Midtown Manhattan. Altoona police questioning Mangione, finding a trove of evidence, including a fake New Jersey ID and a gun, police described as a ghost gun.
Upon further investigation, officers recovered a firearm on his person, as well as a suppressor, both consistent with the weapon used in the murder.
Police say they also found a mask and clothes matching what the shooter was wearing on Wednesday, and police found a 3-page handwritten note that speaks to a possible motive.
Preliminarily, like I said, he seems that he has some ill will toward corporate America.
Mangione is currently being held at the Altoona police station. Late this afternoon, NYPD officers and the FBI arriving to question him. Police crediting the public for the crucial tip that led to Mangione's arrest.
We should never underestimate the power of the public to be our eyes and our ears in these investigations.
Back here live in Altoona, Pennsylvania, where there's a heavy NYPD police presence. 2 more detectives, Natalie and David, just walked into the police station there. Now, Mangione's being held here. At this point, he is not charged with the Midtown murder. He's currently being held here on gun charges. We're live in Altoona, Pennsylvania. I'm Mark Santia, News 4 New York.
Likely a long few hours there, Mark. Thank you for updating us from the scene of where this person of interest is being held. There are, of course, a lot of questions about the identity of the man who is going to be questioned by police.
I want to bring in Chief Investigative Reporter Jonathan Deans, picking up our team coverage from the newsroom. John.
Natalie, David, the man in custody on the weapons charge in Pennsylvania appears to have an Ivy League education with a master's degree. And investigators are looking at angry writings posted online about healthcare firms and
Team switching off? Welcome to Miro, the innovation workspace, where everybody works together on an AI-powered canvas, so teams stay on the same page from idea to outcome. Innovation belongs on the canvas. Innovation belongs on Miro.
Live in Lower Manhattan with what is next for Luigi Mangione. What are you finding out, NJ?
Well, right, Liz, we are roughly 300 miles from Altoona, where Anthony Johnson is, and we'll deliver a report in the next hour. But yes, we are outside New York City Hall, where Mayor Adams and top police officials held a press conference to brief the media on the investigation and on the arrest. Let's be clear, Liz, there is still a lot about this case, still a lot about the arrest that we do not know. Investigators, as we reported last week, were far more concerned with making the apprehension, making the arrest, than they were with trying to pinpoint a motive. They were trying to track down the killer. That was their priority. The motive as to why somebody would want to kill Brian Thompson, that was secondary, they told me, to making the arrest. Why would he want to kill Brian Thompson? Well, the killer fired 3 shots and was on the run since Wednesday. Investigators revealed today they did not have a name until Mangione was arrested this morning. But they believed all along that they would eventually arrest him, mainly because they could track his movements into and out of the city, and most importantly, as Kimberly referenced, because they had that one picture of his face, which was the linchpin in this arrest. More from the commissioner on that in a moment, but first, the next steps. Well, Mangione will likely be arraigned in Pennsylvania on a weapons charge, then extradited back here to New York City to face murder and other charges. NYPD Chief of Detectives Joe Kenny.
We're going to have to work that out with the Manhattan District Attorney's Office in Altoona, Pennsylvania. He's going to be facing gun charges there, and at some point we'll work out through extradition to bring him back to New York to face charges here, working with the Manhattan District Attorney's Office.
Well, the impact of the public's role cannot be overestimated. Crime scene investigators recovered DNA. They will now use that DNA and other forensics to link Mangione to the murder. Much more on this case and the arrest as it develops coming up on Eyewitness News at 5 o'clock tonight. We're now live outside City Hall, and Jay Burkett, Channel 7, Eyewitness News.
Popular, kind, and highly intelligent. A former classmate of Mangione's who chose to remain anonymous said this is something they would have never seen coming.
He was so sweet and so smart. He was literally valedictorian, and I was in a similar social circle to him, but he was just like a wholesome guy.
Mangione graduated from the Gilman School for Boys in 2016. His classmates said because he was so intelligent, the intricacy in which he allegedly planned out the shooting is not surprising. They told us it, quote, made sense that he would have the capability to carry this out. Mangione was quiet, driven, played baseball, and a UPenn graduate with a computer science degree.
I mean, yeah, I think it's definitely motivated by wanting to make a statement and fight against something that he doesn't believe in.
He has not been formally charged in the shooting, but officials say he will be facing gun charges. In Harrisburg, I'm Sarah Burns. Back to you.
Police have named a 26-year-old Ivy League graduate and activist as the person of interest in the killing of United Health Chief Executive Brian Thompson. Brian Thompson was shot dead outside a Hilton hotel in Midtown, New York last week in what police say was a brazen, targeted attack. A cryptic message was written on the bullets with a Sharpie with the words deny, depose and defend, which are words that are associated with tactics insurers use to avoid paying claims. Police say Luigi Mangione is the person of interest. These are fresh pictures of him. He was recognised by an employee at a McDonald's in Altoona in Pennsylvania who called the police, and authorities say he was carrying a ghost gun possibly made on a 3D printer, 4 fake IDs, a US passport, a mask and a handwritten document that speaks to the motivation behind the crime.
That male was asked for a form of identification. He then provided a fake identification card out of New Jersey. After a brief investigation, it was determined that the ID provided was in fact a fake ID, and he was subsequently arrested for a forgery charge.
He didn't even think twice about it. We knew that was going to die, but he was very cooperative with us. Didn't really give us too many issues. Once we found out his identity, we took it from there.
How does it feel with 6 months on the job as a law enforcement officer to be part of, to make this arrest?
I can't say I was expecting it by any means, but it feels good to get a guy like that off the street.
Authorities say the document was 3 pages in length and suggests that he has ill will towards corporate America.
But I do have to applaud the employee of McDonald's. And I said it from the beginning. Eventually, this guy is going to get hungry and he's going to need food. And I just had this feeling that this is where he would possibly slip up. But this is a combination of good old-fashioned police work mixed with advanced technology. It was the hours and hours of surveillance footage and video that they went through to come up with the photo that was used to help identify this suspect. And it was that photo that the media, thank you to the media for putting it out there. As a former FBI investigator, I can tell you that the media is crucial in solving investigations because you put it out to the public and then they listen, they watch. And we always say, if you see something, say something. And this employee did.
You know, safety often turns on the strength of the relationship between the community and law enforcement. We have that strong relationship here in Altoona, and it was proven here today. I want to ask all of our fellow Pennsylvanians to demonstrate the same type of thoughtfulness and courage and smarts as the individual McDonald's did this morning, and help law enforcement here in Pennsylvania as we continue with our investigation. You'll see photos of the suspect who is here. And you should know that the suspect traveled between Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, making stops in between, obviously here in Altoona. I want to ask all of our fellow Pennsylvanians to help us with any tips that they might have.
This is what we know about Luigi Mangione. He was born and raised in Maryland. He has 2 engineering degrees from the University of Pennsylvania. He has ties to San Francisco and most recently lived in Honolulu. The New York Post reports that he hated the medical community because of how it treated his sick relative.
And we know that he has been in Pennsylvania, for several days. And so part of that investigation will also focus on trying to retrace his steps. We've already identified businesses, for example, that he frequented in this area and activities that he engaged in. That led us to more evidence. And so all of that is becoming kind of a mountain of evidence that has to be analyzed and looked at. I'm confident we'll have a much better idea of his activities over the past number of days in New York and in Pennsylvania. Additionally, we're also trying to determine that we don't have another actor or an accomplice out there. So this information will all be used to help us prove or disprove whether that exists and whether there were any other intended targets. So a lot of questions that are out there that are unanswered yet, but we have a lot of information that we can examine that hopefully will give us some of those pieces of data that we need.
Police say they believe the shooter travelled to New York on a bus from Atlanta, and shortly after the shooting, he fled the scene on a bike to Central Park. Before the shooting, he visited a Starbucks and made purchases with cash.
And he keeps the murder weapon on him? And he has a manifesto. It's almost like he wanted to get caught, because you go into a McDonald's, you go into a Starbucks, they have cameras. You got to go to get a hot dog on the side of the street if you're that hungry. Get a water bottle from the guys that sell these things. This guy was obviously looking for notoriety, and good, he's got it. Now, he's a prep school kid. He's politically connected in Maryland.
He's ready for prison?
I don't think anyone's ready, Brian. Maybe you are, Brian, in a different way. But this guy's not ready. He's way too soft. He's going to get annihilated on the inside, and good.
Brian Thompson was a father of two who lived in Minnesota, but was in New York City for an investor meeting. He was on his way to an event to help set up when he was shot. His wife told NBC News that he had received threats, potentially linked to issues of healthcare.
Brian Thompson was a father to two. He was a husband, and he was a friend to many. And yes, he was the CEO of a health insurance company. In America, we do not kill people in cold blood to resolve policy differences or express a viewpoint. I understand people have real frustration with our healthcare system, and I have worked to address that throughout my career. But I have no tolerance, nor should anyone, for one man using an illegal ghost gun to murder someone because he thinks his opinion matters most. In a civil society, we are all less safe when ideologues engage in vigilante justice. In some dark corners, this killer is being hailed as a hero. Hear me on this. He is no hero. The real hero in this story is the person who called 911 at McDonald's this morning. The real heroes every day in our society are the women and men who put on uniforms like these and go out in our communities to keep us safe. This killer was not a hero. He should not be hailed.
See your favorite games come to life on metal posters from Displate. Discover official art on metal and let your walls join the game. Shop now at displate.com.
And the big story here and all around the country, a man born and raised in Maryland now behind bars after a days-long manhunt for a suspect in the killing of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. Luigi Mangione denied bond during arraignment this evening.
He was arrested at a McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania after being spotted by a customer. Right now, he's only facing weapons and forgery charges in Pennsylvania, but police say Mangione gave them a fake ID and a 3D printed gun and silencer. All of that found inside of his backpack. They also discovered writing suggesting that he had a grudge against corporate America. He will be extradited to New York, where he'll be charged in Thompson's killing.
The suspect is a graduate of the University of Pennsylvania who police say went to Philadelphia and Pittsburgh after the shooting. But he and his family have deep roots right here in Maryland.
Fox 5's Nana St. Bonsu live tonight in Baltimore County with the latest. Nana?
Hey guys, good evening. We are here outside the Hayfields Country Club in Baltimore County. We know that it is owned by Luigi Mangione's family. Now we're told that at least one of his parents lives on the property that's currently blocked off by cones and security. Now we're told Luigi was raised in this community, and people who say they've known him since he was a child are lost for words.
You know, I'm just shocked.
Shocked to find out that Luigi Mangione, who grew up in his Cockeysville neighborhood, is now the person of interest in the deadly shooting of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson in New York City last week. He was arrested by police almost 300 miles away from New York in Altoona, Pennsylvania.
It was discovered that he had a United States passport that identified him as Luigi Mangione.
I certainly haven't seen him in years, and so, you know, I really can't speak to, you know, what he's like today.
Chad Chilcott lives just steps away from a number of the Mangiones, a well-known family in the state of Maryland.
The Mangione family is you know, they're a lovely family, and, you know, they've been involved in the community, you know, quite a bit, and very well respected.
Fox 5 was in the neighborhood when we noticed some family members pulling into one of their houses near the golf course.
We're with local news station Fox 5 DC.
Please go to the road.
Okay, no problem. Is there a statement or comment you'd like to give us? Thank you.
26-year-old Luigi Mangione went to Gilman School in the city of Baltimore, where he was valedictorian of his graduating class.
I was like, why does that look familiar?
Fox 5 spoke with one of his former classmates shortly after Mangione was arrested on Monday.
Still at this moment, it's just really surreal to me, and I've been in contact with a lot of people that, you know, went to my school, were from the area, knew who he was, and they're all really devastated and shocked by this news as well.
Fox 5 is also learning that Luigi is related to Maryland State Delegate Nino Mangione.
Wonderful family, and I just, I'm sure it's got to be terrible to be in their position right now.
Now, guys, we did reach out to Delegate Mangione, and he just got back to Fox 5 DC with an official statement from his family saying, quote, "Our family is shocked and devastated by Luigi's arrest. We offer our prayers to the family of Brian Thompson, and we ask for people to pray for all involved." Now, and as for people in this neighborhood here, they tell me, you know, they're still lost for words, and they're still trying to process what has hit this community. Guys.
Wix. One platform, any website, unlimited creation. Describe your needs and goals. And AI will transform your tailored brief into a unique website that's ready to perform in minutes.
All right, good evening. I'm Ellison Barber. That was Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro there. You were just listening to a press conference from Blair County, Pennsylvania, where 26-year-old Luigi Mangione was arraigned on felony weapons charges. He is the person of interest in the deadly shooting of the United Healthcare CEO, and he was taken into custody in Pennsylvania this morning. We have just learned Mangione has been charged with 2 felonies and 3 misdemeanors. Those are tied to the gun and ID that was allegedly discovered on him when police were called to a McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania. Again, that was earlier this morning. Take a look at some new video that we're just getting in as well. This video here is showing the 26-year-old in handcuffs as he is walked towards the building ahead of his arraignment on those weapon charges. So far, we're told he has been denied bail, but he did not enter a plea. Let's bring in NBC News' Stephanie Gosk, who is in Altoona, Pennsylvania tonight for us. Stephanie, walk us through what stood out to you from that press conference. What did we learn from officials there that was new?
Sure, Allison, most notably was the fact that the arresting officer was just 6 months on the job of police officer when he was called to this McDonald's this morning around 9 a.m. or so. There was an employee here that recognized Mangione. You know, those pictures have been circulating, thought he looked suspicious and called police here. The officer and his partner arriving on the scene, what he described in that press conference, is coming in, starting to talk to Luigi Mangione, asking him to pull down a medical mask that he was wearing. He says he and his partner immediately knew that that's who they were looking at. And they asked him if he had been in New York City recently. And when they asked him that question, he became nervous and started to shake. He also, we are told from law enforcement, showed a fake New Jersey ID. And that fake New Jersey ID was the same one that was shown by the person of interest at the hostel in New York City when he checked in. It was among a number of things that they found on him, a number of fake IDs, a laptop that he was working on. He also had clothes that were similar to the shooter's clothes, and most importantly, perhaps, a gun and what they were calling a suppressor that looked like the weapon used in the shooting 5 days ago in Midtown Manhattan. All of this being pulled together, but it's important to make the point that he has not been charged yet with the murder of Brian Thompson, the CEO of United Healthcare. He's being held on those weapons charges, as well as lying to police about his identity, Allison.
Yeah, that's right. So again, for viewers at home, he is currently charged in Pennsylvania with 2 felonies, 3 misdemeanors. Those 2 felonies are forgery in the 2nd degree, presumably related to a false identification, as well as a firearms count carrying without a license in the 3rd degree. In terms of those misdemeanors, they are tampering with government records or identification, possessions of an instrument, meaning a weapon, as well as a false ID. We are told from our team inside of that courtroom there was no plea. He was only asked if he understood the charges, and he said he did. Stephanie, one thing that also stood out to me in that press conference was hearing police there talk about what happens next, an extradition to New York, and the possibility of Luigi Mangione deciding to waive his extradition rights. Walk us through what could happen here next. New York police, they are in Altoona trying to question him, right?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, while we were standing here, we saw a motorcade go zooming by that was the NYPD with lights flashing. They are here. They're going to question him. They're going to, if they're going to charge him, they may do that soon. But there has to be a process that has to be held. You know, as you mentioned, he is charged with a number of crimes here in Pennsylvania, so there will be an extradition process. There is also a hearing that he is scheduled to have December 23rd. So Luigi Mangione is not leaving Pennsylvania anytime soon, and they certainly aren't going to let him out of jail, that's for sure.
And Stephanie, in terms of how he ended up in Altoona, walk us through what police say they think he did in the days after, allegedly, if he is in fact the person New York has been looking for, the New York Police Department, what he did during his time in Pennsylvania and where they think he may have gone.
Well, Allison, we knew from law enforcement officials that the day of the murder of CEO Brian Thompson, that the person of interest went to a bus station in northern Manhattan, and then they lost the trail, according to what they said publicly. So they believed, or it certainly would lead someone to believe, that he took a bus from that bus station over the GW Bridge, which leads to New Jersey and eventually to Pennsylvania. The governor in this press conference saying he went to Philadelphia, that he then went to Pittsburgh, and then that he came to Altoona. They didn't give any details, and what a lot of people were asking in that press conference about where he might have stayed and where he may have gone over that period of time. I mean, you're talking about 5 full days, and one of the most remarkable things about this case was that it took as long as it did to find him. The police in New York City saying they did not have an identity, but what they did say today is that those photos that were released, and they released quite a few, but particularly the ones of him in the hostel where you could see his face, that those were critical to making an arrest in this case. That is what the employee here at this McDonald's recognized, and that is why the employee called 911, got the police to come here, and eventually that's why we're here now with this arrest being made, Allison.
All right, Stephanie Gosk in Altoona, Pennsylvania on that breaking news. Thank you. We appreciate it. We're going to stay on this story because the person of interest in the murder of the United Healthcare CEO, Brian Thompson, here in New York, his online posts and social media feeds, they are all now seeming to play key roles in the investigation as it unfolds. So here to help us break this down and the latest developments in this case is NBC's Tom Winter. Tom, I want to kind of pick up where Stephanie left off because you've been so careful, rightly so, in your reporting. And as far as the NYPD and the FBI's investigation goes, this individual, Luigi Mangione, is still considered not a suspect, but a strong person of interest in the murder of the United Healthcare CEO, Brian Thompson. Is that where things still stand in New York right now?
In New York it does, but in Pennsylvania, Allison, and good evening, what they're looking at now is an argument they made to the judge as far as making sure this individual was not put out on bail, which is effectively saying we expect him to be charged in New York, potentially with a homicide. And so that's where the state of play is in the courthouse. It appears clear to us, at least initially, that they're going to probably charge him based on everything you just heard. But it might take a couple of days, and it can take a couple of days legally, because you know what? His face might match that face. It might match all the other faces that we've been looking at. He might have had the same identification that he had at the hostel on his person today, and the same thing with the weapon. But they have to prove all those things. They have to go back and build this thing together now that they have him, as far as all the elements, and make the argument to the judges in Pennsylvania, hey, we want him out of here. And then they've got to make the argument, ultimately to a judge and a jury, potentially in New York City, if they charge him. So there's some work that needs to be done. This doesn't need to be a perfect case. Okay, so you don't need to sit there and sift through all the evidence and make sure that everything is perfect, like you're ready to go to trial. They'll be able to do a lot, I think, in a short period of time to be able to show that they have enough reason to get him out of New York.
You know, I was struck, Tom, by Pennsylvania authorities saying that he was initially cooperative in interviews with police, but he is not now. We mentioned social media. This is a young person. He appeared to have a very robust presence online. We have also heard from authorities there in Pennsylvania that they allegedly discovered some sort of writings, a so-called manifesto, when they took him into custody. What do people need to know? What do we know right now about the interest in his online presence and the possibilities of that so-called manifesto that he had with him?
About as high as it gets, Ellison, in plain terms. So they're definitely combing over all those posts. There's been some other items on social media related platforms that they are looking at. I think that's significant. And so there's some things that will come out, I think, in the next couple hours as we do our reporting and they do their investigation, actually flip that around, that we'll be able to talk to you about. But certainly here a little bit more than meets the eye. Ultimately, though, let's take a step back and look at what the governor said. The governor said, look, shooting somebody using violence, if in fact he's charged with that here, for your personal benefit or for the benefit that you think society might have, that's not acceptable. And that's what the governor said. So I think, you know, we can, and we probably will go nuts about all the various accounts that we look at over the next couple of days. But the facts are the facts. If in fact he's charged with homicide, that's not necessarily relevant, Ellison.
And in terms of what happens in the next couple of days, you mentioned that extradition process. It can take a while. The police there saying he has the option, if he chooses in the next 24 hours or so, to waive his extradition rights to New York, assuming New York does charge him in the coming hours. But if he chooses not to waive that right, it could take days. What, in your past experience covering this sort of thing, how long does it typically take to see someone removed from a nearby state like Pennsylvania to get them back here in New York to answer on other charges?
You know, we had a great example in Brian Koberger. The individual's been charged and accused in the University of Utah shootings. Typically, most attorneys say, you know what, let's just get him to the place where he's going to face charges. No reason to duke it out here, because you run the risk, Ellison, particularly in a state where we get the court documents that we get in Pennsylvania, that prosecutors and law enforcement get to put a lot more stuff on the public docket, enough things for me to read, to share with you, and to share to everyone about this individual's background. And so that's just typically, not speaking to this person, but typically a big reason why attorneys say, you know what, let's get them back to face charges in the district where they're charged, and then we'll get everybody to go quiet. So I think that's why that's probably more likely than not here, but you never know.
All right, Justice Correspondent Tom Winter, thank you so much. We appreciate your time and insights on this. For more on the profile of this person of interest and where the investigation may go from here, let's welcome back John Moynihan. He is a retired NYPD captain. He's also the author of a series of detective novels. His latest is The Guns of Antwerp, NYPD Takes Boston. John, thank you for joining us, and I appreciate you jumping in on such a chaotic moment of a lot of information coming to us. If I can you take us back? Let's go back to New York. And this, again, is an individual who police in New York are calling a strong person of interest, not a suspect in the murder here, though based on what we heard in that press conference, it seems that homicide charges are likely coming his way from the state of New York. Given that, let's look at a map and sort of go back to the route we believe Mangione possibly took here. So he was found in Altoona, Pennsylvania. That is over 250 miles west of New York City. We know it appears, based on what we've heard from authorities, that he traveled by bus for at least part of that journey. But then we just heard in that press conference from Pennsylvania authorities that they say they believe there was some sort of traveling that took place between Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. And they're asking people in Pennsylvania to come forward with any sort of information they may have. When you look at that track and the course of time we've been dealing with, what do you take away from it? Do you get the sense that this was someone who possibly had a plan for the first 24, maybe 30 hours after this alleged crime occurred, and then sort of was just seeing where he could go? Or does it seem like this was someone that has had the last 5+ days calculated, if in fact this is the suspect in the New York case?
It's well put, because he calculated things to an extent, but not to a great extent. I mean, he was in New York for 10 days prior. What was he doing? Now, this, he left the George Washington Bridge bus terminal. I said this the other day. There's 3 places. Right now, he's a Greyhound customer by habit. We noticed coming up from Atlanta. Greyhound goes to 3 cities out of that bus terminal: Philly, Boston, D.C. So he went to Philly. That's what it looks like. And then from Philly, somehow found his way to Pittsburgh. And then why he came back towards the city east to Altoona. Pittsburgh is further west than Altoona. It's hard to, hopefully we'll know the truth soon. And this drives me to my next point. You really touched on it just a moment ago. We'll find out, depending on how good, see, this is where the real detective work begins. Mm-hmm. Now that we found him, you said that initially, early this afternoon, they hadn't charged him yet, not even Pennsylvania. It took him a while, right? Mm-hmm. And that chief got on and told us that initially he was cooperating, and then he wasn't, and then we charged him. This is exactly how this works. Mm. Once he's charged, you have filed an accusatory instrument with the court, absolute right to counsel attaches, you can no longer interrogate. Mm. Our guys, the reason we're not charging him, we want to get him in a box. We want to talk to him. If right now, for our New York detectives, for our New York case, he has a qualified right to counsel. In other words, we read him Miranda, he waives, we can talk. He can talk, we can have a conversation. Once he says lawyer, it's all over. But once we file a charge, the right to counsel becomes absolute by law. Once you file the accusatory instrument, you can no longer question. That's why it's going to take a while. If he continues to cooperate and we get a good detective in a box with him, we're not going to charge him until we can see how much we can get him to talk. Once he lawyers up, charge him. That's what's going to happen.
Okay, so as someone who is not a police officer, is not a detective, we're looking at this from the outside and thinking, okay, it looks like they have a lot of evidence in New York. Why haven't they charged him here yet? But you think that could be a strategy on the NYPD's part?
Exactly, absolutely, yes. It's like when we have established probable cause on any case, detective brings it to the boss, says, I think I have probable cause on this guy, sure, go get him. We don't go get an arrest warrant because that is in fact an accusatory instrument and you have just attached absolute right to counsel. You can't question that guy when you find him. We go, we make the arrest, read Miranda. If he waives, we can talk to him. If he doesn't waive, now we charge him.
I'm curious to get your thoughts on the weapon that, according to police, was found in Luigi Mangione's possession. We have an image of this. This is the firearm. From the outside, it appears to be a fairly standard semi-automatic pistol, but what authorities are saying is, in addition to recovering some sort of silencer in Pennsylvania, they are also suggesting that this possibly could have been made entirely from a 3D printer, a so-called ghost gun. When you look at that, and then also when we go back to the video that I know you have looked at and analyzed on the show throughout this case so far, of this moment where the shooting takes place, and it appeared at some point, a lot of people have talked about this, that weapon jammed and that he seemed to know what to do with it. When you look back on that now with the possibility that this could be a ghost gun, a 3D printed gun, do you think, does that change your opinion of that? Because I heard so many people saying, okay, he knew what to do when it jammed, he must be really trained. But do 3D printed guns, are they just more prone to jamming?
Well, first off, that's not a 3D created gun.
You don't think that is?
No, that's a properly manufactured weapon. I don't even, To tell you the truth, when I'm looking at it in the picture we got on the screen right now,
I think we can go back to it.
that doesn't look like the weapon that they recovered. And I'd like to know how much ammunition did he have in his backpack. He had a backpack on him. That does not look like a 3D created gun, and it could be. I'm no ballistics expert, but that does not. That looks like a properly manufactured gun, and it doesn't look like the murder weapon either. This kid was heading back towards New York. Realize Pennsylvania is well west of Altoona. He's heading back towards New York. How much ammunition did he have? What else was on his mind? He took 10 days in New York before he shot that man. Now he's on the road for 5 days and he's circling back towards New York. I'm not sure that's the murder weapon that was seen in that picture. It really doesn't resemble the one that I saw. The one that I saw has to specifically be racked after each shot. That's a semi-automatic weapon that you should be able to fire after you rack it once. I mean, there's a lot more that we'll find out once they get him charged. And let's hope they don't charge him soon. We want our detectives to be able to talk to this guy.
So with the NYPD that is in Altoona, Pennsylvania right now, how do you think they are approaching interactions with him?
We're not talking to him yet.
Okay.
No, that's theirs. That's theirs.
So until he's extradited, they can't really do.
They don't want to.
Conversations.
They took their shot. Tried to talk to him. They succeeded for a little while, it sounds like, and then he lawyered up, and then they charged him. That's exactly the sequence of events and how it's supposed to happen. While we're talking about Altoona, can I just give a great shout out to that kid? Even your Stephanie Goss, you can't mention the fact that he's 6 months out of the academy without smiling. That's just such a great thing. Truly, what happened in Altoona, let's understand just how great it was based on what did not happen. That kid walked up to that table and said, "You've been to New York lately?" His presence, his posture, his entire approach, what did not happen is this man did not commit suicide. Okay, someone in his position may be prone to shoot themselves. We'd never have any answers. He didn't draw and try to fight it out with the cops. He didn't try to run. And think of this, McDonald's is a fast food restaurant, right? By the time he got his food, sat down, started to eat, one person saw him, went to the clerk calls up, 5 minutes have gone by already. How long does it take to eat your breakfast at McDonald's? That the cop responded immediately. He didn't blow it off and say, oh, another sighting. He went there as quickly as he got there really fast. It wasn't like he walked in and had two people saying, we thought we saw the shooter here. No, he got there quickly at a fast food restaurant. Like, there's so many things that did not happen in Altoona. We have to recognize that. That's really good police work on that kid.
Yeah, Governor Josh Shapiro saying the same thing about that police officer and also calling the bystander who reportedly worked at McDonald's who called into 911 a hero. John Monahan, retired NYPD detective, author as well. Thank you so much. We appreciate you being here with us tonight.
Thanks for watching.
Introducing the Anchor Prime charging station. Transformational fast charging for your desktop. Smart control for maximum speed. Anchor Prime. Power to drive your pride.
John, what stands out to you from all of these details? Obviously, he did have a manifesto on him, but they're being quiet on motive, quiet on how he got to Altoona, quiet on how long he was there, although it was days. But there is a lot of information in here. What stands out to you?
Well, so many things, but, you know, so much of we just discussed. So let's talk about the things we didn't touch on, which is, you know, George Bivens, the Lieutenant Colonel of the State Police, who we know well on this show because he's involved in all the major incidents there, talks about he traveled around the state for several days, presumably since his escape from New York City after the shooting last Wednesday, and has been traveling between Philadelphia and Pittsburgh and places in between, which is not a short distance. So we have to ask ourselves a couple things. Is he beginning to effectuate a second stage of his plan where he's going to go on the run? Is he planning to figure out how can I now get involved in international travel with his foreign currency and his passport? Or as an individual who's carrying a manifesto that says, you know, in the plural, that these parasites, you know, must be killed and things like that.
These parasites must be killed. Parasites, plural.
You know, he is armed with a weapon and ammunition and cash. So was he going to do another job, hit another person, perhaps another executive from the healthcare field or another field in his kind of anti-capitalist, anti-profiteer genre, and they dodged a bullet by finding him because of this publicity and that alert employee and customer.
Perhaps quite literally so. Kirk, when we hear that, right, 3D printed gun, ammunition, loaded Glock magazine, as well as 6 9mm full jacketed rounds found. When you think about the ammunition that he used prior, when you hear what John's saying and what we see in this, does it seem to you that perhaps he was preparing for another one?
I think so. I think John hit the nail on the head here. In particular, hearing about the cash, that's a fairly large amount of cash somebody can survive on for some time, and the Faraday bag. So it seems that he was not prepared to return to a particular location, but to move around. When I first heard about the weapon, I thought perhaps he retained the gun in order to elude capture and perhaps battle it out with the police.
Right, if police arrest him, he has it to shoot back.
Yes, but clearly he wasn't prepared to do so when these police officers approached him because he knew who they were. He could see them coming. And also he didn't have the gun on his person. So it does sound like he was preparing to take some form of possibly future action.
Mary Ellen, let me ask you, from what you are hearing now, what they found, and they talk about how he responded when that police officer, 6 months on the job, walked into that McDonald's early this morning and apprehended him. He pulled down his mask, he cooperated, then he gets visibly nervous when asked if he was in New York. What stands out to you?
Well, the one thing that I keep thinking about as I listen to John, and I agree with John about perhaps he was not finished. This is a very smart young man. He has 2 degrees, valedictorian of his high school class. I believe he knew he could never really return home. This was it for him. You can't return home and just assume a normal lifestyle after what he did in New York. So I do think that there was more on his agenda, that he wasn't done. It could have also included suicide at the end. But they caught him in midstream, and I think, I feel like that's really part of what he intended to do, is to continue on with the shootings. And I think that's, part of that mentality, part of that injustice collecting. When he uses terms like parasites, he wasn't just referring to the one person. And he spent at least a year in planning and thinking about this.
CNN has just obtained a photograph of the gun found on the suspect in the shooting of the CEO of United Healthcare. Take a look at this new photo obtained by CNN's John Miller. It's the weapon recovered by police earlier today when they detained 26-year-old Luigi Mangione. New York police officials say this is a ghost gun, meaning a handmade weapon that could have been 3D printed. It's not the only potential evidence police say they found in Mangione today after a McDonald's employee spotted him eating inside the restaurant and called 911. Police say they also found a multi-page document on the suspect, and a source says that document criticized the health insurance industry and included the lines, quote, "These parasites had it coming," and, quote, "I do apologize for any strife and trauma, but it had to be done," unquote. A private memorial is being held today for United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, according to a source. Thompson was on his way to attend his company's annual investor conference when he was shot and murdered last week in New York. Let's go straight to CNN's Danny Freeman, who is live for us outside the McDonald's in Altoona, PA, where Mangione was taken into police custody just hours ago. Danny, do investigators know how he ended up in Altoona?
And Jake, that's still one of the biggest outstanding questions that we're hoping to learn. What brought 26-year-old Luigi Mangione specifically to Altoona and specifically to this McDonald's behind me? I'm going to show you just really...
Looks like we're having problems with our satellite.
Midtown Manhattan, where that crime... Oh.
Let's go back to Danny. Danny,
okay,
yeah, you broke up for a second, Danny. Go ahead, start again. Oh, got another hit.
No, I was just going to say... Oh, maybe? Can you hear me?
Go ahead. Go ahead. We can hear you.
Yeah, so Jake, I just want to describe to you where we are. So this is the McDonald's right here where Luigi Mangione was apprehended by police. Altoona police, they said that at 9:14 this morning, they received a call, like you noted, from an employee of this McDonald's, a female employee of this McDonald's, saying that someone saw who they believed to be someone who looked like the suspect in that United Healthcare CEO murder. Altoona police arrived here, right to this restaurant. They came inside, they spoke with this man, and sure enough, they ended up apprehending him. Now, they arrested arrested him for charges unrelated to specifically the murder. They arrested him on gun charges, but on his person, notably, as you noted, they found that ghost gun. They found that suppressor. They found fake IDs. They also found a manifesto. Much of that, I believe, our colleague Bryn Gingras will get into in just a moment. But again, I just wanted to describe to you, Greyhound station that's right in this immediate area, Jake. The Greyhound station is maybe about an hour's walk from this point, maybe about 10, 15 minutes of drive. There's a local bus station right here. The question still is, why this specific spot, and how did he get here at 9:14 this morning, where he was ultimately apprehended by local law enforcement officials, Jake?
All right, Danny Friedman in Altoona, thanks so much. Let's go to Bryn Gingras in New York. And Bryn, you have some new reporting about a fake ID that was also allegedly found on Mr. Mangione.
Yeah, and Jake, we know that NYPD investigators are there in Altoona. They are working on this investigation, obviously trying to talk to Mangione at this point. And that fake ID is key. Let's talk about why, because it is one of many that was found on Mangione, according to sources. And let's take a look at it for your viewers. Police believe this New Jersey fake ID may be the same one that was used to check into that Upper West Side hostel that police knew was used prior to the murder happening last Wednesday. So that would give it a direct connection to here to New York, to the possibly the crime. So that is a big piece of evidence that they found. Of course, as you just heard Danny mention, they also found that ghost gun, that picture that John Miller had, that they believe possibly could have been made with a 3D printer. They're going to run ballistics on that, but they know that it could fire 9mm bullets. And they also found a silencer, and that also was something very unique to this investigation. So investigators certainly are going to be looking at that handmade silencer or suppressor as well to kind of see if there's a connection there. But it doesn't end there. Of course, there is so much investigation that is still being done at this point. We know that Mangione was carrying some sort of document, according to our sources, that really railed against the healthcare industry. Didn't name any names, didn't say Brian Thompson at this point, of course, a victim in this case, but certainly it is something that they are now looking into exactly what sort of strife he might have had with the healthcare industry. He said, as you mentioned, Jake, some of the phrases in this sort of document, quote, "The parasites had it coming." That was one line, and another was, quote, "I do apologize for any strife and trauma, but it had to be done." Jake, we know at this point investigators are still trying to make all the connections they possibly can, including trying to answer that question you asked Danny about how did he get to Altoona from New York City, but they're also, at this point, they're going to get him fingerprinted. You know that they are going to take his DNA once after this arrest, and hopefully they can make that connection as well to some of the evidence that was left behind very close to the crime scene, Jake.
At this McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania, authorities believe they captured the suspect in last week's New York City sidewalk shooting.
At this time, he is believed to be our person of interest in the brazen targeted murder of Brian Thompson, CEO of United Healthcare, last Wednesday in Midtown Manhattan.
Authorities say a McDonald's employee called the police while the suspect was eating in their restaurant around 9 a.m. this morning. Police say they found in his possession a gun and suppressor consistent with the weapon used, a fake New Jersey ID consistent with the ID used by the suspect, clothing including a mask consistent with those worn by the suspect, and
officers recovered a handwritten document that speaks to both his motivation and mindset.
Police identify the suspect as Luigi Nicholas Mangione, age 26, born and raised in Maryland, graduated from the University of Pennsylvania in 2020. Last known address in Honolulu, and no prior arrests in New York.
All of these endeavors take a huge amount of courage.
Graduation video suggests Mangione was valedictorian at his all-boys high school in 2016. Authorities say the note found in his possession railed against the healthcare industry.
We don't think that there's any specific threats to other people mentioned in that document, but it does seem that he has some ill will toward corporate America.
It said, quote, "These parasites had it coming, and I do apologize for any strife and trauma, but it had to be done," according to a police official who has seen the document. The note says he acted alone and that he was self-funded. And it asked why we have the most expensive health care in the world and yet are ranked 42nd in life expectancy. Authorities also investigating other writings of his online. As to the gun.
The gun appears to be a ghost gun, may have been made on a 3D printer, the capability of firing a 9mm round.
Police did not have the suspect's name until today and say tips from the public were crucial to finding evidence and making this arrest, along with old-fashioned detective work.
really comes down to the video canvas that we did. We used every source of video that we could collect, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours from hundreds of sources.
Also helping authorities?
There are a number of mistakes that the shooter made, to include leaving forensic site evidence behind. The DNA, all the videos, taking off his mask.
One hypothesis?
With his manifesto and everything he's done so far, the letters on the words on the bullets, right? The monopoly money. This guy, I think, he wanted to be captured eventually.
Police have arrested a suspect in the murder of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. 6 days now after that murder, outside of Hilton in Manhattan, police picked up 26-year-old Luigi Mangione in Altoona, Pennsylvania. This is after an employee at a McDonald's recognized him from photos and called the cops. Joining us now, Congressman John Joyce, a Republican who represents the Altoona area. Congressman, thanks so much for joining us. Sorry it's under these conditions. Can you tell us if the NYPD has arrived on the scene yet, as far as you know?
Jake, just in the last 30 minutes, the FBI and the NYPD have arrived at the Altoona Police Department's headquarters. And I've been in contact with officials from the Altoona City. I have not talked to the Chief of Police, Joe Merrill, who is keenly involved in this investigation.
So what's curious, and you might not have an answer for it, is why he was in Altoona. It's a lovely place to go. You and I have common friends in Altoona, the Port family, but he's from apparently Maryland. He went to the University of Pennsylvania. Is there a connection he has that you know to Altoona at all?
No known connection, but there's great availability. We have rail, we have bus service, and we have a great interstate highway system that comes through Altoona, Pennsylvania.
Okay, so it's like a thoroughfare. It's pretty incredible. I don't know if you know who this McDonald's employee is. One of your constituents, it seems, identified him. And the only reason that this case has been cracked, assuming it has, is that this McDonald's employee in Altoona recognized the assailant from the photos that have been on TV.
Jake, this was a courageous employee, a restaurant employee at McDonald's on Plank Road in Altoona, Pennsylvania. And not only did she see something, not only did she say something, she did something. She alerted the Altoona Police Department, who responded quickly and detained this individual, this person that was suspect and highly suspect. But she was very courageous, asking him to remain there while the police arrived. And to be able to do that, I hope this will put an end to the ongoing investigation. I think that having someone in hand right now, having the FBI and the New York Police Department in Altoona, Pennsylvania, continuing that investigation, will allow many people to rest at ease.
So what did she say to the suspect as far as, she approached him and said something?
I don't know what the content of that conversation was, but I know it was an employee at the McDonald's restaurant in Altoona, a courageous employee.
Yeah, no, it's a gutsy thing. You see somebody, I'm sure most people would be like, oh, I don't even know. What if I'm wrong? What if that isn't him? But, he really looks a lot like him. And she just called 911, I assume, and the police came?
And we have 66 police officers in the Altoona police force. My medical practice, I practiced medicine for 25 years before coming to Congress. My medical practice is just 2 blocks away from that McDonald's.
Hey, stream. We'll be back on tomorrow morning. We'll try to find a better entry spot. Hopefully it dips a little bit and we'll get back into it. If you're watching, thank you. Please join the Discord. Please join the Telegram. It's been a good night. The killer has been found. The meme coin is up. Let's try to make some money from it.